shows you how on it I am already. Hi everyone, happy Friday! Woot woot! Welcome to another episode of History Drink Repeat. We are on our episode 3 of our spooky series, The Day Before Halloween. I am Piva Colada, I'm Janelle, and this is...
Angelus 000, also known as John.
I like it. Today, if you didn't know, today is actually National Frankenstein Day. Does anybody else know that? It's the last Friday of October. It's an annual event, one time a year. My cheeks already hurt from this. I'm very excited. So, I'm excited. Actually, the topic of Frankenstein and Mary Shelley is definitely one of my favorites. When I was an undergrad in college, I wrote a whole paper on Mary Shelley. It was a terrible paper, right? Yes, happy Frankenstein Day, right? It's a terrible paper, but it was really fun to research and learn about the life of Mary Shelley. And now it's very commonplace to kind of know a little bit more about her. She's very famous, obviously. She's very iconic. Now there's a movie or a TV show out about her, I think, with Ella.
Ella Woods from Legally Blonde.
No.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, what's her name? She's so great. Ella Fanning. Yeah, I think it's Ella Fanning. Ella. She's playing Mary Shelley in a new film, and I'm actually very excited to watch it. She was great in Catherine the Great as well. So, yes. So, Frankenstein, correct, right? One of the most famous stories of all time. We celebrated the 200th anniversary back in 2018. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's been around for 202 years, which is holy shit, it's so long.
It's a pretty long time.
It's a pretty long time. You have to think about it. And it's still unbelievably iconic even to this day. When you think about the original, even though you guys, we do need to get a couple of things off our chest right before we begin the story of Mary Shelley and her Frankenstein and talking about the book and all the things that go with it. We really need to talk about this. First of all, if you didn't know already, right? Frankenstein is not the name of the creature, right? Frankenstein is the name of the doctor.
Clearly, it's the name of the monster.
It's clearly, yeah. And,
yeah.
I mean, Victor Frankenstein is technically the monster of the story, but you know.
And you know what? It's Frankenstein.
Oh, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Actually,
I know a lot about Frankenstein. Here's a fun fact. Did you know the hot dog was named after Frankenstein?
Really? Like a Frank? No. Oh my god, I'm so gullible.
I don't know much, so I'm excited for you to tell me all about Mary Shelley's story of Frankenstein. I've seen all the movies. I won't want to say all. There's a lot of them.
There's over 100 films, or 100 films, I think. Do you have that stat? You're already scared. Well, the story is not necessarily scary, but it is iconically a horror a theme, right? So this story isn't necessarily a scary story like when we talk about the exorcism or the craziness of execution of people that were claimed to be witches, right? But this story has this very much a theme to it. And it starts these tropes that didn't exist prior, like the mad scientist, right? So we think of when we think of horror films, we think of the mad scientist. Mary Shelley begins that whole entire archetype, not really trope, but an archetype, right?
Wait. Sorry to interrupt. Before we jump into it, what are you drinking?
I am drinking some beautiful red wine, which clearly I need to refill in just a second. John, what are you drinking, love?
And I am drinking some German whiskey from Ireland. It's Irish whiskey.
I like it. You're doing some Irish whiskey. I mean, the story takes place in London, England. You're close enough, I guess, right? So, Northern Ireland, part of Great Britain. They freaky. Oh yeah, I will never touch a Ouija board. So that whole conversation, I agree with you. You guys, I have this beautiful wine stopper. Oh, okay. I thought I couldn't get it off for a second. I was about to get real sad. Let me do some...
You say it's beautiful and then you don't show anyone.
Oh. It's a globe. Because if you know anything about me, I own, an insane amount of maps. I'm a map person, and I'm a globe person. So if you ever want to give me a gift, that's all I ever want.
I mean, it's just in the wrong shape. Isn't it supposed to be flat?
Ha! You flat earther. Don't get out of here. By the way, this is my wine bottle that is very much, in my opinion, like a Rocky Horror Picture Show style wine bottle. And John will talk about this later, of course, but Rocky Horror, of course, is a parody. It does, elements of Frankenstein. So this was my appropriate wine bottle. You want to cuddle? with it. I'm just ready to go to bed. And actually, I want to kill some zombies after this.
No,
okay.
I'm ready to learn more about the story of Frankenstein.
Of course.
And the craziness of this wonderful traveler, dreamer woman.
Oh, I like it. Look at you hitting all those points. Yes, he definitely traveled. He definitely had a dream. Nice. Yeah. So most of us already kind of know the story a little bit, but if you do, awesome. Here for a nice little refresher, maybe learning something new. Dave Daz, welcome to the stream, my darling. Welcome. So yes, if you know much about Mary Shelley and the creation of Frankenstein, thank you for tuning in just for maybe a good time and maybe to learn something new. Or maybe you don't know anything about it and you're here to learn the almost accurate history, right? Because we've been drinking. We'll see how this goes. But I'm very excited. So, remember, this is an extremely iconic topic, right? We have themes, archetypes, tropes, and imagery, right? That's used throughout pop culture for the last 200 years, right? Screamin', welcome, my darling. Welcome to History Drink Repeat, episode 3 in the spooky series. I am fancy tonight. I did this for you. I need to go kind of gothic. We're talking kind of this time period, right? Very fancy. Very, very fancy. Kind of also dirty, but very fancy. London, 1800s. But
very dirty.
Very dirty.
You know.
Thank you.
But you know, the hookers were much cheaper back then.
Oh so my god! Well, so was money. Oh so, my god! What are we doing? We're talking about Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, Frankenstein. Sorry, I'm focusing.
Okay, so remember, this is a story about a mad scientist, right? The pursuit of knowledge, the reanimation of the dead, a science experiment gone wrong, man trying to take control of the concept of the creation of life, right? Which is something that, if you believe in this, is preserved, right, for God or gods, or even a woman, right? Because the woman gives birth with the help of a man. But like, you know, it's like man, like wants this kind of, it's a powerful thing, right, to create life. So this is another type thing that we talk about. And of course, this idea that of man messing with nature, right? Traditional nature, the natural course of things. You're born and then you die, right? So he uses science, right, for this this crazy experiment. So it's like, damn you, science. Oh, well, I love science. Who doesn't love science? It is super fun and super cool. Again, a couple quick things. I was studying this and then we got distracted. Frankenstein, right? If you Google Frankenstein, what comes up? The creature. But yep. Frankenstein is the doctor, right? So it's Dr. Victor Frankenstein. Remember that. Frankenstein is not the creature, or what we dub the monster, right? He's not a monster. He's the creature. He has no name, and that in itself is symbolic.
He has no name, which makes him a monster.
No, he has no name, and there's a reason he doesn't have a name.
Oh, I can't wait to know. This is you.
Oh, by the way, so what's the most iconic line when you think of Frankenstein? What's the most iconic line?
Did you touch my baseball?
No, come on. It's alive.
Oh, it's dead. It's dead. Like, you know, it's the Italian. It's the dead.
No, it's alive, right? We always think of that because it's been very much portrayed in the films and in plays, right? This like Frankenstein, just like when his monster, his creation comes alive, he screams, "It's alive!" Right? That actually is not in the book, by the way. So Mary Shelley never wrote that. You didn't read it? This is something you gotta do, John. You gotta read these books.
This is why I join you for these Drink History Repeats. Because I may know a lot about science and other things, but I was not a big reader in high school and college.
Screamin' knew what I was saying. It's alive, right?
Yeah, well, you know.
So, very iconic, right? But thank you for the productions of Frankenstein. We now think of that as a very iconic phrase, right? Also, did you know in the book, Igor is not in the book, by the way. So he's in kind of a made up character.
Is it Igor or Igor?
Igor. Whatever. Tomato, right?
Potato. Yeah.
But there was a character named Fitz that was in the story, but Igor did not exist in the book as well. So just a couple of things for you guys to know. If you want to do a compare and contrast essay, I have this for you. That information, you're welcome. So Frankenstein, of course, is known as a Gothic novel. It has Gothic themes in it. And ultimately is known, if you didn't know this, it's known as the very first science fiction book.
It's crazy.
That's pretty revolutionary. I mean, you have an entire genre of science fiction now, right? Books, movies, games, boom, boom, boom. And Mary Shelley, a woman no less, right? Created the first science fiction book. I think that's one of the raddest things I've ever heard. I can't contain myself.
I mean, that's really cool. I mean, weren't they doing, or this is probably in the 90s, you know, they were making like really short periodicals, like I thought, was there any type of fiction before that, or is this the first like length type book?
Well, it was science fiction, because remember the scientific revolution, right, starts off more like you know, during the Renaissance period. You know, we have this big boom with Galileo, and oh god, we're gonna go too far back. We can't do this. You know, I'll go into a rabbit hole.
Okay, let's just keep going. But
you know, Isaac Newton, right, and later, and then all of a sudden we have, of course, in the early 1800s, we have this invention of electricity, right? Being able, people kind of knew, but when Benjamin Franklin got his kite, right, it's controlling. So the iconic imagery.
Nikola Tesla.
Tesla was with Edison, which is a different. Yeah, that's actually more like late 1800s. Yeah, so that's a little bit. He's not born yet where we are at. They're not born yet, John. They're going to perfect, right, with the whole. Was it again with the different currents?
Yeah, AC versus DC.
Yeah, AC versus DC.
Alternating current versus direct.
That's late 1800s. We're not there. We're in the early 1800s. Okay.
I didn't pay attention in history class. Okay. Don't school me. There's no test after this, right?
Yay, women. Yeah, screaming, right? So Mary Shelley, super revolutionary. She writes the first science fiction book. It's like, remember, it's this mixture of science fiction and horror. It's very much a romantic era style book. There's a lot of emotion in this. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later when we discuss Frankenstein. But one of the things I really wanted to start with was the life of Mary Shelley, right? Who is she? Where does she come from? Who were her parents? Who did she associate with? And again, this is a very iconic story. You might already know these little tidbits, but I thought it'd be fun just to kind of discuss them with you guys before we talk about Frankenstein, because her life very much influences, right? In some ways, it's autobiographical. Wait, that's not the word. What's the word?
Autobiographical.
Autobiographical. Damn you, beautiful wine. All right. Okay, so let's start. Mary Shelley, right? She was actually known as Mary, I think I'm saying this right, Wollstonecraft Shelley. But her mother was Mary Wollstonecraft. So there's a ton we know about her life, and that's because Mary actually wrote it down. She was a writer, right? So she wrote her own, so there's actually an amazing biography that she wrote. I highly recommend it. She just is so elegantly speaks, right? I could never speak like her. She is a dream. I love it. Okay.
Can you give me an example of like one? Do you have like a sentence that like?
I do, but I have it later.
Oh, okay.
Again, I didn't want to bog down the stream with quotes by Mary Shelley, because one, I don't think I would do it very justice. Like, I would stumble over my words because it's so beautiful and eloquent and just like, ugh. So, and she gets this, right? So this is like, so she was born in London, England in about 1797, right? So around the turn of the century. So she's born in an age coming out of like we have the Enlightenment period, right? The age of discovery. And then Mary Shelley is born, and we're going to hit into the early 1800s, right? Her father was William Godwin, right? And he was this political philosopher, and he was very famous. He was very much a prominent figure in his profession, and he actually believed that humanity could be perfected, right? He very much had this ideals, like this enlightenment, which is like this movement, right? This ideological movement, and that pretty much that humans could evolve past that. They would no longer need the government. They felt the government was really corrupt, which is kind of these really radical ideas, right? Especially because they live in London. They have a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy. They have parliament. And then you have America with democracy. Yeah. So the idea that he felt humans could progress, right, past organized government, because government in itself is a corrupt system. So he's actually a very interesting, very prolific political philosopher. So yeah, he's someone to study. There's also her mother, right? So he in himself was a radical thinker. Her mother was a feminist, roughly, right? She was a feminist. She actually was this very radical, she's a famed feminist of the time. Her name was Mary Wollstonecraft, and she is an author in her own right. She wrote the book The Vindication of the Rights of Women. which is pretty
Holy
big.
crap.
You think about the rights of women in the
at the 1800s. That's
well,
actually that's
she
impressive.
wrote that in 1792, but yeah, it's still that time, right? That turn of the century. This idea, women were definitely trying to get the rights for anything, honestly, instead of just bearing children. So you have this really radical political thinker father, and also this socially radical mother, right? These are her parents. They are so epic. Unfortunately, though, Mary's mother, whose name's also Mary, you're going to realize this. There's a lot of Marys. There's a lot of Williams. Like, every story we tell about the past, everyone has the same name.
But not enough Johns.
Not enough Johns. We actually have a John in this story, John. Boom, boom, boom. So you are already good. So
I'm already liking it more.
He's actually a cool character. So I'll tell you what he does in a moment. So Mary, unfortunately, her mother passes away about 11 to 12 days after the birth of her daughter, Mary. So she actually never got to know her mother because she passed away from birthing complications, which is very tragic to think of this amazing woman. But giving birth, especially at that time, very scary, very dangerous. So what's Mary actually sorry, I should call her Wollstonecraft maybe, or should I say Mary Senior? Mother Mary? That sounds
Mother Mary, that's a little weird.
That's a little weird.
Mary's
mom, right? Mary's mom, Mary. Mary's mom actually had a daughter from an affair she had with a soldier. So she had a half-sister named Fanny as well. So when William and Mary got married, she already had a daughter named Fanny, and then all of a sudden they got together and they had a daughter, which was Mary, who would be Mary Shelley, right? Unfortunately, again, like I said, Mary's mother passes away from birthing complications about 11 days after giving birth to Mary, and so William's going to raise Fanny and Mary until he decides to remarry. So a few years go by, things are pretty peachy, things are pretty fine, and then he finds a woman. Guess what her name was, John?
Survey says Mary.
Mary, yeah. Congratulations.
What do I win? I should win something.
I know you should win something, right? So he actually marries a woman named Mary Jane Claymont, in about 1801. So again, Mary was born in 1972, right? Let me make sure my notes say that. 1997. The book, The Indication of Women, was 92. So Mary was born in 97. Her mother passes away, and then about 3 years later, he marries Mary Jane Claymont. Mary Jane.
So Step Mary.
Step Mary. Yes, now we're on Stepmother Mary. Okay. Stepmother Mary actually had her 2 daughters of her own from a previous union. I know one of them's name is Jane, but she goes by Claire. I don't know the other one. Because Claire is going to be someone who's important. She's going to be traveling around with Mary shortly.
I'm sorry, that's weird. Hi, my name's John. I go by Chris.
Well, she preferred it. It was her middle name. So in the beginning, if you read stories about Mary Shelley, she goes by Jane, right? Jane. But then eventually she prefers to be called by her middle name, which is Claire. So it does not to...
sorry, question from the chat. 1797, right? Not 1997.
Yes, you gotta help me with this.
That'd be really, really weird.
You gotta help me with this. I do this all the time. I
was letting it slide. I figured
never let me slide. You need to keep me in check.
I just figured your chat was very intelligent, and they would know you were referring to.
No, because this happened when I talked about the Salem witch trials. I'm pretty sure I said 1963 when I meant 1693, and that's because I am dyslexic and I get really weird. So remember, 1797, Mary was born. 1801, he remarries his stepmother, Mary Jane, right?
Got it. Okay, we're good.
I'm
following.
Stepmom has 2 daughters, 2 children of her own. Yeah, I know, I'm real weird like that. And when the stepmom and William get together, they actually eventually have a son of their own. There's a bunch of kids, right? A bunch of kids are around.
Wait, is the son's name Mary as well?
No, I think the son's name is William. I think they named their son William. There's a lot of those name after your relatives thing, right? Because we have Mary Jane, and then we're gonna have Jane Claire. We have Mary Wollstonecraft. We have Mary Jane Claremont. We have Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. You just don't.
I need to take notes.
Then we're gonna have Percy Shelley, and then their son Percy Florence. Okay, I just try to keep up. With these names.
Yeah.
If you guys need to pull up a genealogy, you have Google. So, okay, this is what goes down, right? Stepmother, Mary, don't get along. They're not getting along at all, right? They don't like each other very much. I'm not going to call stepmother Mary an evil stepmother, but she definitely decides to not give Mary a formal education. Like, she's not going to send her off to boarding school. Claire gets sent off to school, but Mary does not, right? But luckily, William, her father, right, really good one, he has an insane library. Remember, he's a philosopher. He's into political science. Like, I don't know if that's a term that they had at the time, but he's really into politics and philosophy. So he has this amazing library. And Mary is in there grabbing books and she's reading. So she can read. So she's really known to like grab books, go, and she's in her pastime. She's reading all the time. She's known to go out to her mother's grave, sit there and read as well. Her father actually would have her write ledgers a lot, like write letters. So she got really good at writing. Of course, he also encouraged her to write short stories. And actually, he published one of her first poems. It has an interesting name. I had to write it down because I couldn't remember. Oh, did I actually get rid of it? It's a name I couldn't pronounce, so I think I got rid of it from my notes. But she actually published a small story when she was really young. Her father very much supported this. So she was a writer very much from the get-go, right? But she was also known as a daydreamer. She liked to daydream and write down these short stories. She was a doodler, scribbler. She called herself a scribbler. Again, if you read her beautiful biography, she called herself a scribbler. So, as Mary gets older, she becomes a nice young woman. She's about 14 years old. And that's when she meets Percy, right? She meets Percy Shelley. Percy is a devoted student of her father. Actually, I think he got kicked out of Oxford for being an atheist or anti-something. He's pretty radical himself. And I think he sought out William and became kind of a student of William's because they had the same ideas. I think it's like anarchy, right? These really crazy political ideas.
Yeah.
Socialism, anarchy.
The progressive wing of the society at the time. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, Percy's about 5 years Mary's senior. So when she's about 14, he's around 19 years old. He kind of comes in and out of her life, and when she's about 16 is when Mary and Percy really like go, hey yo, right? They really catch each other's like attention. But here's the thing. Percy is already married to a woman named Harriet, and
Scandalous.
They have 2 children, right? So he's about...
Wait, how old is Percy?
At this time, he's probably 21. Remember, people got married pretty young.
I know.
You
they
know
got married
this.
young. They were banging as soon as like they could. But
teenage weddings, teenage pregnancies. That was kind of the deal, right? So Percy's already married to a woman named Harriet, and that in itself is a very interesting story. I don't want to go down too far down a rabbit hole on that one, but like he kind of like secretly eloped Harriet, all these things, right? And they had 2 children, but then all of a sudden Percy sees Mary, and he's all like, "Oh, hey, girl," pretty much, and they actually run away together. They just leave, up and go.
Abandon the kids too?
Everything. She leaves her family, he leaves his wife and his children. Actually, I think his wife was pregnant. I don't know. There's like this whole thing, right? Yeah, Percy. Actually, her stepsister Claire also was in love with Percy or something like that. I don't know. Percy was a heartbreaker. Oh, you know what, you guys? I have pictures. John, you gotta keep me on track. So this is a portrait of Mary. I think she's a little bit old.
Janelle, don't forget to show pictures.
Oh, thank you. This is actually a picture of Mary. I think she's a little bit older in this picture.
Someone I want to run away with and desert my family.
Again, I think this is her older. I couldn't find anything younger. And then this is Percy, definitely younger. Oopsie daisies, you guys. Here we go, Percy. You know what I like about Percy is that I love his hair. Look at that.
I hit it. That guy looks suave.
I like the popped collar, right?
Yeah,
that he has.
Yeah.
He thinks he's definitely the shit, right? He's the cat's meow. He definitely was a heartbreaker, which you'll learn even more about.
Good point, Lolo. Yeah, you can't see his booty. I mean, if I saw his booty, then I might commit. But...
I don't know. He had all the girls in the yard, right? So, so they actually run off together. Her father greatly disapproves of this, of course, and they actually don't speak to each other for quite some time. But when Mary and Percy run off together, Claire joins them. She's like, "Oh, let's travel." So they travel around Europe. Her, Percy, and Claire doing their thing, right? Mary looks very pretty. Thank you, Screamin'. I think she looks very pretty as well. Don't tell John. I don't know what's going on there.
Not my type.
So together they traveled through Europe. And while they were doing that, they actually were really struggling to make ends meet. They didn't really have a lot of money, but they were making do, right? Also, during this time, Mary gets knocked up. She gets pregnant, right? So they're running around Europe, poor, but having some
boning all over the place.
Boning, just having a good time.
Yeah.
She does give birth. She has a baby girl, but unfortunately, the baby dies within a few days. It doesn't survive infancy, right? And this is very hard on them. So it's their first child that they're going to lose at a venue. So remember that. That's a theme.
It's a theme. How do you bring a child back to life? It's alive!
No, this is sad, John. This is a sad moment. So yes, she loses her first child. Think of that. It's 16. That's crazy. I can't imagine that at all. So that was it. This is around 1815, just to give you guys an idea of where we're at, right, in the timeline. So about 1815, she loses her first child. Then the following summer, so around 1816, the Shelleys, right? So Mary is actually not married to Percy at this time, but she's calling herself Mrs. Shelley, because remember, Percy's still married. So that's a thing. So they go off to Switzerland with Claire and their good friend, Lord Byron. I have actually a picture of Lord Byron, because let's talk about Byron for a second. You want to talk about another lady killer? Look at that man. People definitely loved Lord Byron. He was a poet. I think he died in a gutter, like at a young age. He's dramatic.
He kind of looks like he's related to Sacha Baron Cohen a little bit. Just... I'm getting Sacha Baron Cohen vibes.
I like it. So, by the way, Byron actually was published Percy at a very young age. I think Percy was published at the age of 14. He was already an acclaimed author at the age of like 14, 15. I feel very unaccomplished. So these people, so think of Mary, right? Although she hasn't really done much, she has been published, one of her poems or short stories, but she comes from a very affluent family, as in a very prolific father. And then Percy as well, right? Very much well known within his circles. And Lord Byron, right? He is a poet in his own right. We used to read Byron today. This is very much a hipster group of kids, right? Traveling around Europe, just doing their thing. So Lord Byron, so they're all in Switzerland and they stay in this house. And actually Byron, I think, is having some love connections with her stepsister Claire as well. They're kind of getting it on. I think Claire gets pregnant at some point. So it's those kids being kids. I don't know what to say, right? So they are at this little house and they're entertaining themselves or reading from a German horror book, basically. Because you know those German folktales. They're super creepy stories.
Yeah.
They're really fun. So they're reading them to each other, having a grand old time. Then Byron is like, hey, how about we create our own ghost stories? We're all very talented individuals. Oh, by the way, Byron brought a friend with him. And that's his doctor friend named John. Don't want to forget about the John in the story.
That's John, very important. John.
Let's take a drink to Dr. John. Dr.
John.
I can't say his last name. It's with a P. So Lord Byron comes up with this idea. He's like, hey, let's all come up with our own ghost stories, right? So they all coming up with their stories, and then they're all like writing them down, right? They're in a corner, like writing them down, right? Coming up like, oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. So what's really cool, one of the first stories is the doctor friend, Dr. John, I just call him Dr. John. He comes up with basically a vampire story that's going to influence Bram Stoker's Dracula down the line, which is pretty rad. It's like,
that is cool.
What are these horror geniuses doing in a single room? I can't believe it. I can't remember what Byron and Percy do. It's not very memorable, obviously. But then Mary's like, Byron. So if you read her biography, Byron apparently keeps asking her, like, have you come up with a story? And she's feeling this pressure, right? She wants to come up with a really good story because she's competing against these amazing authors, right? And she herself is a great author, but men-women dynamics, right? So like, she's like thinking about, she's like, oh, not yet, negative. I'm really thinking about this. So one night she hears like Percy and Byron, they're having a conversation. They're talking about some really crazy scientific experiments that are going on, right? In the early 1800s England. And that's basically, because remember, electricity is something that's coming about during this time, right? Controlling it, using it, perfecting it. I mean, we won't be able to use the light bulb. I mean, light bulbs, I think, and the battery are coming after, but we don't really use electricity in cities until like late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we're experimenting. So people are using electricity and doing crazy things with it, like sticking it into people, right? And sticking it into animals and seeing what's happening. Cadavers, not real people, not alive people, not yet. So like cadavers. So of course, Percy and Byron are having a conversation about this, and she's like, "Oh, that's really interesting, right?" It's like these talks. And so what happens is that night she goes to sleep. And while she's sleeping, she has a crazy dream. Or as she says, she has a nightmare, right? She pretty much has a nightmare. And in that nightmare is when she first dreams about the ideas of her insanely famous novel, right? Frankenstein, or AKA the modern Prometheus, right? So she wakes up and she tells this story, and they're all in complete awe over it. They're like, "Oh my God, it's a crazy story." And she starts writing it down, and at first she's gonna think this is gonna be a short story. But Percy, although he's kind of a dirtbag, he actually really encourages her to write. And like he helps her, right? Comes up with a plot and really get into this motion of writing a novel. And that's where the tale of Frankenstein really begins. So it doesn't get published, so we're around like 1816. It actually gets published in 1818, the very first edition. So Frankenstein comes out in 1818, you guys. If you didn't know that, it's been 202 years old. It was called Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, which again is very symbolic if you know anything about the Greek god Prometheus, the god of fire, right? The creation of humans. That's the whole thing. I get really giddy. I'm getting so excited. Can we just talk about the book already? Actually, did you know when it was first published, it was published anonymously? Mainly when a woman would publish a book, they would publish anonymously because of the ideas of women writers, right? So when she did that, people thought Percy actually wrote it. And so there's actually a modern day debate about how much Percy really influenced and how much, because if you read, like there's notes, like we kept hard copies, right, of like him writing notes within her story. But it's definitely known as a collaboration project, but really it's Mary's baby, right? She really is the one that she dreamt it. It was her idea, her concept. It's written in her vernacular, in her words. But Percy definitely gave her a lot of notes and helped really encourage her.
Yeah. Well, if it's her baby, I'm glad this one didn't die.
Oh, I know. We're about to talk about more of that, too.
Oh, no, I don't want to hear any more of that.
So although that this book was published in 1818, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about the tragedy element. Everything that was happening up until the book was published. I know. Here we go, right? So first things first, her half-sister Fanny, right? Franny. Oh my gosh, you guys. Her mother, right? Her mother's first daughter. She actually is very depressed, and she actually ends up committing suicide. So that's the first thing that happened. She takes her own life. So there's tragedy within her family. Her oldest sister kills herself. Also, Percy's wife. Remember, Percy has a wife. Don't forget this. Harriet is so distraught over this whole situation, Harriet ends up taking her own life as well. I heard
the 2 kids they had.
Oh, I don't really know what happened there. He actually has a very prominent father. I think they might have moved in with them, with his family, because he had a very prominent father who really never accepted Mary as well. That's a whole thing. But after Harriet commits suicide, that leaves it open for Mary and Percy to finally wed. Because nothing says romance like that. I'm telling you. So they finally get married, and now she's officially Mary Shelley. They have about 2 more children who then also die as well. I think she has a miscarriage. You think about this, she's like so she publishes the book at 18, so by this point she's like 17, 18 years old. Still very young. She loses 2 more children, but she does have a son, right? They named Percy Florence, and he's actually going to be the only child that she has that will live to adulthood. Wow. She does have one. Percy Florence is the name. Also, though, Percy, her husband Percy, has a wandering eye. Their marriage is full of trauma as well. He is an adulterer. Like, he definitely has a lot of affairs, which causes and they have a lot of heartache because they're also losing their children as well. So Mary's going through a lot while writing Frankenstein. The idea that she had the will to still complete this novel, right? Maybe it was something she was driven to do. I'm not sure, right, after the death of these people and her own personal children, right, her miscarriages and the death of her children. But she does give, it is a lot, but she actually gives birth to her son more like 1819, so a year after the publication of Frankenstein. It's pretty crazy. And like, you guys have to remember, she was so young. She was only 17, 18 years old when all this was going down. So she does have Percy Florence, who lives to adulthood. He will be by her side. And then the last thing that was really tragic that happens in about 1822, Percy himself goes on a sailing trip with a friend, and he's going to drown.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I know. This is a tragic story. We were talking about horror, right? Mary Shelley's life in this regard within these few years, I mean, she's widowed at the age of like 24. It's just like...
Yeah, Black Widow.
I mean, she's lost like 4 children. She's lost her sister, and you know, her mother died when she was born. This idea of tragedy, right? The idea of this birthing tragedy. You could even use that. Is another, again, this is the theme. I'm trying to bring into this theme of Frankenstein, right? The birthing tragedy. The dangers of it. So, widowed at the age of 24. Shelley's she herself is gonna actually work really hard to support herself and her son. She's gonna publish. Done. You're done, right? Done. So she's actually going to publish a couple of more books. She's gonna do another science fiction book, I think, called The Last Man in 1826. I'm saying the right years, you guys. We're in the 1800s. 1826. So she does a really nice life for herself. One of the big things she's also going to do is she's going to preserve Percy's poetry and put it in a compilation, which is going to reserve his place in literary history as well. So she pretty much makes her husband immortal as well as making herself immortal, right? Percy Shelley's poetry is, if you're a literature major, you definitely read those. It's a pretty big deal. And then in 1851, Mary's going to pass away because she gets brain cancer, which is does sound like a really shitty way to go, especially in the 1800s, even now. And she dies at the age of 53. So,
but not horribly. I mean, that's a decently long life at that time period.
53? Yeah. For the most part, people did leave. People did leave longer than we think they did. They really did. But she's going to pass away from brain cancer at the age of 53. One of the crazy things, though, I wanted to talk about this because this is a really interesting trivia. So when Percy, just to go back just a little bit, when Percy died, they collected his body, right, and they decided to cremate it. And when they cremated it, the only thing left, one of the things that wasn't burning was his heart. Isn't that wild? They think he had a calcified heart, like something about calcium buildup that made it kind of hard, which is crazy. So when she died, they buried her with his heart.
What the hell?
Is that wild? That's wild. That's just so like romantic era to the max. I can't. Like,
it's not romantic. It's disgusting.
It's called romantic era, John. It's a time. It's a period. Time in history. Learn your history. Okay? This is not a Daniel Steele or a Nicholas Sparks book. Okay.
It could be.
It could be though. So
no, it's not. It's a Frankenstein book, and I want to know about the book.
Well, we're going to talk about it. So I had to get through the life of Mary Shelley. I need you to know, right? She, very much, right? She is someone who her lasting legacy is this classic tale, right? Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, right? The struggle between the creator and his creation, basically, right? They kept the heart the whole time. They did. I think something about, or maybe they ended up cremating his heart and then she was buried with it or something like that. I don't think they actually had the heart, right? I think something else, like, but his heart didn't burn with his body, so they removed it and they had it. Something was up there, but she was buried with it. It's wild.
It's just weird.
And I think eventually, or she was, okay, this is where I get confused. Sorry, you guys. I apologize for my lack of remembering. I don't know, maybe Mary was also cremated too, and then Percy, her son, was buried with both of his parents. I forgot. There's something crazy about the burial, and like, I can't remember. It wasn't a statistic that I really tried to refresh my memory on, but
how does this all work into the book? That's what I want to know.
Connect
the dots for me. I'm impatient.
Clearly you are. The classic tale of Frankenstein. I think we all very much know it, but how many people have really read the book? You know, I know you haven't, John. I have. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many other people have. You want? Okay, I want my cold dead heart to be buried with John.
Yeah, totally out. You know what? We can even bury it in a Jewish cemetery for you, buddy.
Oh, no, but Daz has tattoos. So
yeah, it's okay. I'm getting buried. There's no tattoos on his heart, so we're good.
Okay. So, okay, so David read it. Very cool. So the story itself, right, is actually very different than what you see in the movie, unless you see the Kenneth Branagh version. I think the Kenneth Branagh version, Frankenstein, is quite is pretty close. Even Penny Dreadful wasn't too far off. I don't know if you guys watched the show Penny Dreadful. I think that was pretty a good story of Victor Frankenstein to a point. Not fully. Someone's gonna clip that and it's gonna be like, this girl don't know nothing. But like, I do think there's really good elements to it, because it's not when we think of Young Frankenstein, right, or the Boris Karloff one, or anything. You guys are going on about Jewish cemeteries. You're really funny. So I love this. So the book itself is actually known in history as it's kind of this triple threat, right? First, it was the very first science fiction book of all time within the genre. Right? It's one of the greatest horror books ever written, right, of all time. And it's also called one of the greatest romantic era books. So it's so many things, right? It's revolutionary in its own right. And it very much draws on the romantic era of this idea of human emotion, right? Because human emotions is, if we go back to the Renaissance, when we talk about the individualism, right, the rise of individualism, skepticism, secularism, and then the Enlightenment period is going to really draw from that. Right, the idea of the self, right, the ego, and things, right. So, not to get too into that, because I will in a heartbeat. I love that stuff so much. So Frankenstein, right, a monstrous and disastrous birth. I think that's the best way to explain Frankenstein, right? Is this monstrous and disastrous birth, which again, if we just talked about the story of Mary, is a major theme in her life, right? Her mother dies giving birth to her, roughly, right, from birthing complications. She has many children that have passed away as well. So she's this monstrous and disastrous birth, right? And then, of course, her husband will die. Not from a birth, but it's just like this idea of death. Frankenstein, the novel, is very much this product of the Enlightenment period, right? These ideas that are coming about liberty and individualism and merit and accomplishments and just like this grandeur concept about humanity. Right? When you think about the emotions of people, right? That's always a big one as well, which I love. Mary is surrounded by so many prolific thinkers because of her father, these leading figures of the era. So she's very much influenced by those around her, especially Percy and Byron and whatever. She's also she reads a lot herself. And I just this is a topic that I don't want to go too much into this analysis of the literature, because it's not really my area, right? It's not my forte. I'm more I know literature and history and art and all these things that definitely are intertwined, but I'm not as you can say, someone who, I'm not professional. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I'm just not an expert, right, in this area. Do you guys know, though, the story? Did you read? Do you want me to tell you quickly the plot? I guess is where we should go at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you should. Oh, let me try, then you can correct me.
Oh, let's do it. That's a fun way to do it.
So, and this is after not reading the book, but I feel like it's similar. So, there's this scientist and Dr. Frankenstein, and he starts coming up with experiments, and I think someone in his past dies.
His mother.
So oh, there you go, his mother, and he wants to figure out a way to use electricity to reanimate a corpse. And so after multiple failed attempts, he ends up getting different parts from the cemetery. He goes in late at night, steals different parts, puts this body together, and reanimates his monster. And then he tries to teach the monster to be kind and to be good, and the townspeople know that crazy enough stuff is going on. And so although his monster is actually kind, it turns out that everyone's super scared of him, and then the city wants to come kill the monster, and the monster really just he's like a little child. He doesn't want to die, and then defensiveness, and then at the end they all die. How close was it?
I mean, I had to say, I think you got about 80% right. I'd give you an 80 on that. As
Spark notes.
Spark notes.
No, this is literally just because you've seen the Frankenstein story portrayed in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the one that I can think of the most is Young Frankenstein. I probably watched that the most.
Well, it's so Gene Wilder is so lovely. Yeah. Well, oh my God, you guys, let's show some pictures. So I have Byron here. I have also, this is one of the first covers. Oh, this is not actually the best quality, of Frankenstein and his creation. I just thought it was a really beautiful cover, illustration of a cover, during the time. So, but we're going to be talking kind of more about like the story, right? So Victor, remember the story is titled Frankenstein, and he is the main character, right? He's the protagonist of the story, not the creature. I don't call him the monster, actually, because I don't think he's actually a monster. You know what I mean? He's the creature, which I don't know if that's necessarily a better term, but he's known as the creature, right? One of the things, like, remember, he's nameless, right? He doesn't have a name. And I think one of the things that Mary did is she didn't actually name her children that when she had a miscarriage or passed away. I don't think she named them. And the only one she named was Percy Florence, of course, her son who survived. So this idea, right? And remember, when Victor creates the monster in the story, Victor Frankenstein, it does sound Jewish, right? He creates the monster, and when he does that, he's so horrified by it that he abandons it, right? He leaves. So he never names him. He just leaves. Because, yeah, so you're pretty right. So Victor, right, he's a young scientist. His mother passes away. When his mother passes away, he is extremely sad about it, and he gets lost in his work. He's at school studying chemistry and the sciences, right? And he starts to kind of study this idea of bringing something back to life, right? The reanimation of humanoid particles, right? So he starts collecting like human body parts and animal body parts, and he's putting together this creature, right? He makes it extremely large. I think the creature ends up being 8 feet tall and proportionately just gigantic. He, in his own mind, thought he was collecting something beautiful, right? He was like, oh, I'm taking all the best parts of things. But when he puts them together and then he reanimates him, right, by using electricity, when he wakes up, all of a sudden, Victor is so afraid of him right off the bat, right? What did he create? And he flees the scene. He just abandons his creation. He goes, he wanders the street of London. He goes home. He sees his friend, right? And when they go back, the creature is gone. So the book is really cool. The book is bookended by a captain, right? He's a captain of the ship, and he's writing letters to his sister. I think it's Captain Walton. David, do you remember? I think it's Captain Walton, I think is the name. He's writing letters. He's on a voyage, and he's up in the Arctic. But he looks out the window, and he sees Victor on a dog sled, right, being pulled, because Victor's out there looking for his creature. But you'll find that out more towards the end of the story. So when the captain and Victor meet with each other, Victor tells him the story of what's going on, why he's there, basically. And sounds right. I think it sounds right, right? I've read this since high school, which is a long time ago. It might not look good, but it was. So, the story, it goes, it's basically, it's like this 5-part story. It starts off with the captain, then it starts out with Victor's narrative, right? Up until the point where he abandons the creature. He goes back to his country home, where he falls, ill of, brain fever, right? He's so distraught, right? He doesn't know where his creation went. What did he create? What has he done, right? As a man, what have I done? What have I created? Because honestly, if you think about it, he was doing something that defies the laws of nature, right? He reanimated something. He himself, right? He's known as something very egotistical, right? This idea of grandeur, the emotions. And then the story, he then all of a sudden, while he's in his home, his brother William is murdered. And so, because he has 2 brothers and a cousin that are really close, he's really close with, and cousin, I think he's one he's going to marry later. But William is killed, and he sees his creation not too far away. So when he goes after his creation, he meets him, and they actually have a conversation. So when we think of the creature, we always think of him as this brainless, right? mindless thing that wanders around, that doesn't speak, but actually he's extremely articulate. He has his own emotions. He is, like, in his own right, he is human, right? Here we go with the rights, right? So he is human, and they have a conversation, and the creature tells his narrative. So that's a big portion of the book as well. He talks about when he was abandoned. He then decided he wandered the streets, and people were afraid of him. He decides to go hide in the woods all alone. And while he's there, he sees a family, like a poor family in a cabin, and he kind of like secretly lives beside them. He teaches himself, right, how to speak by listening to them. He teaches himself how to read, right? And then he starts to kind of like think about, now that he can speak and that he can read, he can communicate. He tries to befriend this family. There's a blind father who very much is friends with him, but when the rest of the family sees him, they're afraid and they flee and they leave him behind. So it's just like you have this creature who you can say he's intelligent, right? He could definitely make his own things. He has his own feelings. He could read. He could speak. But he's so, people find him so grotesque, right? It's that superficial, like he looks like a monster, right? But on the inside, he's not. Or maybe Victor, right? You can say looks normal, but on the inside could be the monster, right? He's the one who created life and abandoned it because he could. And so this can go so deep, right? We can go so deep into this idea, but the creature is telling this story. And so what the creature decides to do is he demands to Frankenstein, to Victor, that he wants a mate, right? So please create me. Well, he doesn't say please. He pretty much demands to him, right, to create him a lover, someone he could walk this earth with, because the most tragic thing is to be alone, right? He needs a companion because no one can bear the sight of him. So of course Victor says, yes, I'll do it. And then the story shifts to Victor's perspective, right? So while he's back in London creating a new, I guess you could say the Bride of Frankenstein, right?
Yeah.
So a new mate for the creature. Frankenstein actually has this existential crisis. He's like, oh, I can't create another one of these things, right? Because we did find out that he did kill William. That was something he definitely did. So he did murder someone. Emotions, right? The emotions. And so Victor becomes really afraid of this, right? He's like, oh no, what if I create this other monster? And then they procreate and they create more monsters, right? And so he gets really like crazy and he like destroys the body, and this upsets the creature, and like the creature goes out. I think the creature also kills his cousin, right? And it kills his other friend. He strangles his fiance. It's like, the creature, right, it becomes the monster as Victor has seen him to be, right? He is a child, right? He is new, like he's experiencing emotions for the first time, anger, abandonment, you name it, maybe even some forms of jealousy. Can you really blame him? Not to give excuses for murder or anything like that, but it's just, who's really the monster in the story ultimately. And it's this analogy, right? This allegory of this idea that, you have Victor who decides to create life, which is really something that's only been reserved for either this idea of God, right? God is usually the one who can create life. And so when man has that kind of control, chaos can ensue, right? You could be ashamed of what you create. You can be afraid of what you create because you don't understand it. You don't know. I like this. Actually, I do have a quote from Mary, right? Because she's taken these ideas of enlightenment, right? And these romantic ideas of the time, and these ideas of the struggle, the moral struggle, right? The mental struggle of it all. And, Victor himself is very egotistical, and and he defies the laws of nature. And Mary has this really great quote. She's actually critical of Victor. Like, to her, he's known as a tragic hero, right? Even though he's the protagonist of a story, she's not very fond of him, even though she creates him. She says I love this. Again, this is Mary's words, and she speaks so beautifully. I hope I do this justice. But she says, supremely frightful would be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanisms of the creator of the world. So she's actually saying, like, the idea of human endeavor, right? The idea of us trying to create, like, reach this idea at a scientific level to be able to create, right? That's something that's meant for God. Could be something that is it's extremely frightful because it could lead to chaos, right? We don't know what's going to happen. What does that even mean? Defying the laws of nature, ultimately, right? The themes in the book are very thought-provoking, right? They're very visceral when it comes, like, they're very much of the emotional, right? And it explores this idea of humanity going too far. You know, her father very much preaches this idea that the idea of perfecting humans, right? And she, although very much believes in the Enlightenment and she likes the science and she supports these things like this advancement, she's also this idea of being afraid of it, ultimately, right? How far do we go? And I think people still argue that today, right? With stem cell research or whatever. So it's like, how far do we go with it? And she demonstrates that in the early 1800s, and now we're in the 21st century, which is pretty revolutionary. People still ask these questions today, like, does science go too far? Yeah, I can really go. There's so much you could take a whole semester on this. Like, I'm like not doing it justice, I feel like. But the story of Frankenstein, right? Is he really a monster? Yes, he murders. He does. He does go on a tirade. In the end, of course, you know, so the monster flees, right, to the Arctic, and Victor's out there looking for him. And that's when the captain meets Victor. There's a whole other allegory with all that too, about man and exploration. And
how well received was the book when it came out?
Extremely well received. I mean, I think there was a play created within like 20 years after it was published.
Wow.
I mean,
when was it known that, I don't need a date, but like, when was it known that it was actually Mary Shelley who wrote the book versus it? I know it's still debated, but
I think there was definitely a couple of editions that came out during her lifetime. I think about 3. I could be wrong there, but I know of at least 3. And then she started having a prologue written in it about. And what's really great is if you get like a 2nd edition or 3rd edition book, or that could be rewritten today in this form, she actually writes it and she talks about her dream, right? And her creation, how the idea of Frankenstein came to be. So you can read those. But she actually at first was anonymous, and I think by the 2nd edition she had her name on the book.
Got it.
So I'm pretty sure of that. You could fact check me though. It's okay. I don't mind. Oh, by the way, one of the cool things happening during this time, right? This idea is called animal electricity. Basically, it's called galvanism. Oh, I have too many things open. You guys, I'm sorry. Where's my clicky click? Galvanism. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. This is crazy. So let's quickly, I know I'm gone over, we're at like the hour mark here, but let's quickly talk about the technology of the time, right? There's this idea that sparked during the you get it? So electricity. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Got it. Yeah, are you gonna be here all night?
I'll be here all night. No, I'll be here for the next 20 minutes. I'm gonna play Left 4 Dead tonight. I'm going old school. So this pursuit of the understanding of electricity, right? Electricity was this new hot topic, right? Because people, I mean, it had been around, like people knew kind of like a static electricity, like, you know, when you like rub yourself and you touch something and you get shocked. So people understand this, like the energy, right? They understood that, right, with spinning machines, but controlling it and like the idea of it really didn't come about until like Benjamin Franklin with his famous kite experiment in 1752. So like as that goes on, people start to prove that lightning was the same essence as energy and like what you could create with the spinning wheel. So it is cool. People really start to experiment with it. In Bologna, you guys didn't know that's Italy. The University of Bologna, which is something where if you want to be a really famous scientist or in the medical profession, you would have gone to it during this time. Scientists were investigating the effects of electricity, but they were doing it on animals, which is wild. It was very common knowledge that electrical shocks produce violent spasms, right, in the body, and it caused also muscular contraction, which I think we know that. Like if we accidentally get electrocuted, your fingertips get really tight, right? Have you guys ever done that before?
It makes all your muscles tense.
And it gets really tense.
Contract.
Yeah. A contraction.
So, it's like when you see someone running away from a cop and they get tased.
Oh,
they go like
no,
hit straight to the
that's
ground.
terrible. I mean, it's a visual. That's
what
the way.
happens.
It's true. You get tased, you do like that, right? Yeah. Oh God, violent spasms. So the spark scientists actually start experiment on humans as well. So there's Giovanni Galdini, right? So this idea of galvanism. right? This experiment, this animal electricity. He actually comes up. He's this fierce partisan of like this animal electricity. It doesn't sound very clever, animal electricity. Galvanism sounds cooler, but he actually has he's really famous for this exhibit that he does. It took place in around 1803, so when Mary would have been a young child. So basically at this he goes to the Newgate prison in London, UK, and he decides he inserts these metal rods into the mouth the mouth and the ear of a recently executed corpse. This is already
awesome.
Gross. This is my gross part of the story. I'm already like, oh god. So he takes.
Now we're in the fun part. This is the fun part of the story. So
he inserts a metal rod. I have to kind of look at my notes about this because it makes me so creepy. So he inserts a metal rod into the mouth and into the ears, and basically this gentleman named George Foster, who was a criminal. And what happens is like, I have to read you the description. I have it in what's written down from the prison, which is crazy. It says, on the first application of the process to the face, the jaws of the deceased criminal began to quiver, and then the adjoining muscles were horribly contorted, and one eye was actually opened. In the subsequent part of the process, the right hand was raised and clenched, and the legs and thighs were set in motion.
I was just doing my example of what it might look like.
Oh, nice. But think about that. So, like, I can't imagine, like, and contorting your body freaks me out already, so the visualization of it freaks me out. But, like, they stick these prods, right, in his mouth and his ears, and it causes his jaw to quiver, and his one eye is open, right, and, like, his face contorts. I can't even do it. And then his arm raises and clenches, and then his legs and his thighs start to move a little bit, right? And, of course, from an untrained eye, if you saw that, especially without the visualizations that we have today,
he's alive. He's moving.
People think he's actually being reanimated, right? Because his body is moving to a degree. So people are like, oh my gosh, you can reanimate. So this idea is in people's minds, right? That electricity can bring us back. I mean, we could create a heartbeat, right? From a shock, right? So like we definitely use electricity to do that to a degree, obviously. But some observers of the Aldini experiment really foster this idea of using electricity to bring people back to life. So people started to talk about it. The scientific community very much explored this. And Mary, and these guys, like Giovanni Galdini, were friends with her father. Remember, all these great thinkers mingled together. So she was surrounded by this. So this is very influential in the story of Frankenstein as well.
Got it. That's crazy.
No.
This is how it became science fiction. There's the science part.
The science fiction, right? The science part. So that's really all I have in that regard. Of course, I know pop culture. We can go on, but I wanted to reserve the pop culture for John.
Yes.
To talk about, you know, there's so much, like plays and adaptations and stories and movies. I mean, it's endless, right? And we know this. So you, John, I'm going to show the pictures.
Right. So show the picture and we'll just go through it. So I wrote an essay. Not really. I chose just a small representation of Frankenstein films over time. And in this segment, I like to call it the good, the bad, and the crazy. So we'll kind of just dive into just a few of the movies that happened and were about or based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel. So the very first, and this is not the picture, the very first motion picture ever made was in 1910, and it was a short movie of Frankenstein. So it was the very first representation of Mary Shelley's book in modern day cinema. But what really kind of kicked off the story of Frankenstein, and what, although kept slightly true to what the story we just heard, but definitely deviated halfway through, was in 1931 with this black and white film called Frankenstein. And so everyone kind of considers this the definitive version of Frankenstein's creature. In this movie, Frankenstein as a monster creature is actually mostly mute the entire time. And so it was really like the very simplified, dumbed down version, and was largely very successful. So this is 1931, and you said her book was published in 18... Yeah. So you can see, like, it's been a long time before this really starts getting kicked back in. So this film, like I said, was widely successful. And 4 years later, in 1935, uh, the filmmaker Elsa Lanchester decides to come out with a movie that kind of goes into some more of the book, which is called The Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
So this is the sequel to the 1931 Frankenstein movie. And it's the first time you're ever seeing a female creature on screen. And although Mary Shelley talked a lot about, brought up women's rights, and she's going through the time, and her mother was a feminist. In The Bride of Frankenstein, the actual bride, the monster, she only gets 4 minutes of total screen time.
No way.
Yeah. I know. The picture you have up right now is very vivid, and yeah, that's just what happens. Okay, and finally, the last of the three for the good is my favorites. The most amazing, and where I based all my Frankenstein trivia, Young Frankenstein. Came out in 1974 with Mel Brooks. This is actually one of the very first times you see Frankenstein parodied, because it's been in so many movies. And and if you want to ask me, Frankenstein is not the way to pronounce the doctor's name. His son is Dr. Frankenstein. So, a classic song from on the Ritz comes out. Yeah, it's just, if you haven't seen this movie, it's an amazing movie. You should see it. All right, that was the good stuff. Now let's talk about some of the bad stuff. So, the 3 movies out of the bad columns that I select from you, and I've seen none of these movies, but they're pretty bad, with some IMDb rankings and just general information. So the first bad movie, and maybe you guys saw it here, was I, Frankenstein. This came out in 2014. It has one of the lowest ratings on.
I think there's a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Rotten Tomato, not the lowest, but one of the lowest.
I think it has.
Ever.
Doesn't it have 4%?
Yeah, I mean, there clearly has to be some things that are lower than that.
What's his name?
But...
Thomas, the actor. Thomas. Oh, what's his name? You guys, what's his name? He's from Thank You for Smoking.
Yeah. So this was kind of like Hollywood's attempt to make, a big budget God versus monster movie, and really kind of swayed away from the Mary Shelley story, and it was just a failure at the box office and a lifeless.
Aaron Eckhart. Thank you. Yes, Aaron, you would know this. Yes, Aaron Eckhart. Thank you.
I would have remembered if his name was John.
Thank you.
So clearly a horrible film.
Yes, William H. Macy.
Second bad film, although some consider this film great, was a slightly risque film called The Flesh for Frankenstein. This came out in 1973, and this kind of focused on a scientist who was obsessed with creating the perfect Serbian race to basically serve the doctor's whims. So, to fulfill his dreams of having the perfect woman, he decides to build the perfect woman, and he tries to assemble perfect parts of males and females into this woman. And it's just one of those crazy takes. It's
that idea, right? Of like, if you have the power to reanimate a body, right? To create life, wouldn't you want to create something as a personal endeavor, generally, right? When you play with the ego, like something that you would want, right? Yeah. Maybe. So it's interesting that the idea that Victor would have created a man. I mean, he was eloped to his cousin Elizabeth, people did that then. But like you would think so. Like, I guess the Flesh for Frankenstein, like, you have someone who's trying to create what they admire, right? What they would want. Yeah. Which just sounds twisted in its own sense, of course. Weird Science is a great one. Yes.
I mean, Andy Warhol also helped support this film, so that's something to take away. And it kind of has this kind of feverish take on white supremacy and the failures of the countercultural sexual revolution. So they're really trying to push the limits on this film for the time. But then again, in the 70s, you had porn in theaters. You had XXX movie theaters. So there's that. The next and final from the bad is Blackenstein. So Blackenstein was actually tended to be a sleeper hit in 1972. And this is another, during the 70s, you had a lot of black exploitation types of films. And of course, if you're having, things that have been very relevant over time, King Kong being one of them, we have to have a black exploitation film on Frankenstein. So, critics feel like it wasn't a great film at all. But it had a bunch of unique spins, and yeah.
What is the top read? To stop this. Oh my gosh, you guys will slow it up.
It's pretty racist.
To stop this, mother take one bad brother. Oh,
yeah,
that's all right.
Yeah, it's a little out there, and if I that's just one of the pictures, but there's a lot of crazy pictures from that film when I was doing research for it. But yeah, one you can skip, and the last two I really want to talk about being weird. 1990, the director Patty Mullen came out with a movie called Frankenhooker. So this is a silly kind of parody on the take of Frankenstein, where they try to reanimate Elizabeth, and the creature is made and stitched together with body parts of streetwalkers, so a bunch of whores, and of course the head of medical student's fiance. So definitely someone's wet dream when they wrote this movie.
I like her purple hair. It's like, why is purple hair?
Yeah, so this film definitely gets the dubious honor of being like the sexiest of the creation of all these horrible films.
Really?
Yeah.
Would we say that? I don't know.
Without watching any porn, I wouldn't know, but
I don't know. I think the next one is the sexiest.
Well, it's true. But if you want to see like a really amazing B movie, this one it might be a good place to look. And to round off and finalize the last movie I'll talk about, which I think everyone should know about, and which is going to be live tomorrow with a majority of the cast, because they're having a reunion show. When I say tomorrow, it's actually going to be tomorrow midday for us because they're doing it in London. But this would be the Rocky Horror Picture Show coming out in 1975. And yeah, some people might say this is not a Frankenstein movie, and I said, shut up. This is completely a Frankenstein movie, and I'll fight anyone that says it's not. But, in this movie, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say that the monster isn't really, quote-unquote, a monster, but he's this buff and tanned Adonis creature, and they actually, unlike in the book, they give him a name, and the name of this person is Rocky. So there's a lot of references actually in this film to Mary Shelley's version of Frankenstein.
Yes, with the voice of Billy Idol.
Yeah.
Normal, I promise, would know that.
But
yes,
outside of them trying to add some references to the book, it's a movie all in its own thing. So yeah, I won't share too much of it. If you haven't seen it, this is a great kind of sing-along. Once we actually open and get out of the pandemic, every single Friday night, they do a watch the movie and have actors play on stage.
The Newark?
Showing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In Los Angeles? Yeah.
In Los Angeles. So, and if you haven't gone, I won't spoil it because if you go, you were considered a virgin.
Yeah, Meatloaf's in it.
And special things happen to you, and it's absolutely fun.
They're but you had like the idea of like all these remakes or parodies or adaptations is just it's in such an abundance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even like we were talking about this earlier. Like, of course, Kevin mentioned Weird Science. Oh, Erwin, you're so sweet. Thanks for this sub. So like, and then you have Frankenweenie. Like there's so much.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I think I read there were like 100 movies based on Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Right?
But I guess
Bye, David. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, before we wrap it up, I'm curious what chats, if you had to pick your favorite Frankenstein movie, parody, real telling,
you telling people to flood the chat?
I want to know what everyone's favorite is because, I'm a pop culture guy, and I'm curious where everyone kind of ranks up and stacks up their favorite Frankenstein film. I mean, what's your favorite if you had to pick one, Janelle?
Oh, Young Frankenstein for sure. You can't go wrong with Gene Wilder. It's just funny. It's so well done. Oh, the idea of Edward Scissorhands is good because he does create, right? So Edward Scissorhands, right? The idea of creating.
Oh, yeah.
He does create him. I like that. Very good.
Lolo, you know.
I like
That's
it.
my brother.
Young Frankenstein. Oh, is that your brother? Hi,
brother.
Lola. Young Frankenstein, the classics, because I love TMC. Yes, I mean, I like, of course, the Kevin Brother version is I think, very well done. I like Penny Dreadful because I like sometimes bad TV.
I didn't like the first season. That wasn't, and then I kind of like died off.
Even though it got weird, I don't care.
Yeah.
I thought they did well with the whole. I mean, you have Billy. She gets to play the female Frankenstein. Female creature. I think it's so well done. I don't know. So, Edward Scissorhands, great. Yeah, you too. Yeah.
Anyway, that wraps up my part, and I can tell you I learned a lot. I learned that growing up in the 1800s kind of sucked.
Oh, so did my students today when we talked about America in the late 1800s. I got some kids telling me that they're going to cry about it.
I mean, everyone says they want to travel back in time, but, not my skin color. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not going back in time. Yeah, good point, Kevin. Yeah, John Hughes, Weird Science. I was going to put that on my list, but... Yeah, again, it's another one that
originalism
with the story of Frankenstein, but doesn't really go there. But yeah, I'm
excited. Like I said, I'm really excited to kind of watch Ella Fanning's the new version of just on Mary Shelley. I think that would be really interesting to watch as well. Yeah. So I think that's out or about to be out or something like that. So. Seemed appropriate then to mention it. Not that I'm an endorser of anything.
Yeah. so thank you. I learned a lot today, Janelle.
Yeah, I hope you guys learned something.
I didn't realize there were a million Marys in
any history story. We were dealing with this even with when we talked about the Lemp Mansion, right? So it's just like all those Billies. So it's just like I think if you go especially back in time and you're sticking with very specific groups of like culture and religions, you're gonna have very similar names. Frankenstein and zombies? I don't know, yeah. Oh man, zombies, that's a whole other genre. The reanimation of the dead, right? No matter what that is. Oh, you guys, thank you. Again, happy Halloween. I know that it's not the same this year, of course, with everything going on, but I hope that we're all doing, if you enjoy the holiday, if it's your jam, that you're all doing what you can. I'm playing tons of Phasmophobia, which scares the shit out of me, if you know anything. And of course, I'm going old school with Resident Evil. It's my favorite. And we're going to play some Left 4 Dead, which it kind of is old school now, right, for us. So, Dawn of the Dead. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, the old Dawn of the Dead, the new one. Not so much, right? The George Romero. Okay, all right, you guys, have a beautiful night. Have a beautiful, happy Halloween. I'll be back on Monday, of course, playing more Resident Evil 2. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with the history on Friday the 13th, because if you didn't know, in November, we have a Friday the 13th. We don't need any more unlucky days of this year, so let's talk about why that day specifically is an unlucky day. So we'll be back with more history, drink, repeat at that time, but I'll be streaming, of course, random games along the way. All right, you guys, again, thank you. Love you. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. And we'll see you guys next time. All right. Bye, everyone. Good night. Bye. I know my cheeks hurt from all this jazz.
Let's do the time off again.